Hi there, I'm Construction Gamer and this is a map making tutorial for Transport Fever 2. I have already done a tutorial when the game first came out for how to import real world terrain data into Transport Fever 2, but in this one I wanted to take a look at how you actually source the map yourself and then what you need to do to it in the different video editors that I use in order to get a workable map for Transport Fever 2 to make a map of. We're going to be working on this European map. I'm currently working on a map at the minute, so we're going to be taking a look at this, and the first thing you're going to need is a height map, obviously. So what I do, I just typed in European height map or Europe height map, and first thing that came up with this nice black and white image. There might be some others as well, possibly. I think that's probably, and often, because I often create UK height maps, just UK height map, and there's different versions there. As long as they're in a grayscale like that, then we don't really need to worry about it. It doesn't really matter about the size or anything. We're going to be dealing with that shortly, but as long as you get a grayscale height map like this, just type in UK or whatever country you're from, height map. Let's try US. Yeah, and there's a couple there to choose from as well, so maybe if you did state by state, but there are plenty of height maps in the grayscale there for you to choose. If you wanted to do a bit more of a scaled build, then I'd highly recommend using Terrain Party. Now this website was actually set up for Cities Skylines height maps, but it works equally well because it creates grayscales for Transport Fever 2. Now I've got the largest square that you can have, which is 60 kilometers by 60 kilometers. Just for reference, I've just put it over London, and you can see it encompasses the M25 and most of the Greater London area. In order to move the blue square, you just left click and hold and drag wherever you want it. Now 60 by 60 isn't going to produce a one-to-one. If you're using a huge map, then I've just checked a few forums and they say that a huge map is 20 kilometers by 20 kilometers, 20 kilometers rather, which is something like that. Now you're getting in just to the central London area. If you have experimental map sizes turned on and you've got a Megalomaniac map, you can push that up to 24 kilometers, and that's if you want a one-to-one scale square map. If you're going to, so what's that? That's 40. If you're going to do a 1 by 1, a 1 by 2 scale map, then you could do something like that and just cut it in half when you get the height map. And what you do, once you've got that height map, you're happy with the location, just hit that little cloud button in the top right corner. I'll just call it London for the sake of argument, because I'm not going to be using it anyway. I just thought I'd be interesting to show you this website, because it is for City Skylines, but it can equally apply to Transport Fever 2 as well. So once that's downloaded, that's taking a long time today. 5 might be the website, possibly. Right, so once you've got that, you will have a zip full of height maps. I haven't used any Terrain Party height maps, but what you will find is some of them are very highly detailed and some of them are less so. Like, you've got them merged and things like that, so you just have to experiment with which one of these you think works best. What sort of size? They're quite big, so I don't think you'd have to do too much in these, but with the other map there is a little bit more involved, so you could almost use these from straight away, put that straight into Transport Fever 2 and you should be on your way. But what I want to show you is how to edit the height map that you might find on Google. So type that back in, Europe height map. Oh, Euro. Yeah, doesn't matter. We've got one now anyway. So right, we do have our height map, which is here, which is quite small, but we don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to put it into a free software called Photoscape. It's really basic photo editing software, but it's really easy to use, and this is for the first step. So what you want to do is select the area. I can't imagine you want a whole entire Europe map because the scale would be a little bit off, but let's say you wanted let's just say Spain, northern part of Spain. What you can do on Photoscape, if you hold shift, it will do a square. So if you're doing a 1x1 map, then you can do that. If you want to do a different orientation, then if you go to set ratio, so let's say we're doing a 1x3, and it's always portrait, isn't it, with a with Transport Fever map. So you do something like that, maybe. So that'd be a 1x3 map, and what you do is just hit crop, and then sometimes what I might do, just to make things a little bit easier, is I might brighten the image as well, just to highlight the map, make it a little bit easier. Now what I might just undo that for a second. Let's brighten the image just so it really highlights the features and brings the map out. And we've got let's go down here. Let's go back to a 1x1 for that, and then just 1x1 like that. Highlight that area, crop that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom right in, and going to go to tools, and then you want your paintbrush. You can do this in the next video, photo editor software that I'm going to use as well, but I just thought I'd show you in this. This is just like the really rough cropping and detailing of the map. So you can see you've got this river here. You just, because water is always on black, you just want to really accentuate that river, because Transport Fever 2, even with the new more powerful map editor, it doesn't really do hugely detailed realistic rivers, so you really want to exaggerate that river out a little bit. Let's just do the River Thames a little bit here. I know it's not, but you just really want to exaggerate that river in black, but don't worry about that too much, because we can come back to it in the map editor itself, and we can now change the rivers in Transport Fever 2. So once we're happy with our height map, we've accentuated the rivers that we want, we're just going to click save, and I'll just save that like that. Okie dokie, so I have a map I prepared earlier, which is a London to Paris map. You can see here I've exaggerated some of the rivers. It really is quite light, which means potentially this land mass could be quite high off the ground, because the lighter areas are high ground, the darker areas are low ground, and the black is sea. So this is probably going to interpret this as quite a mountainous region, but we don't need to worry, because we can alter things in the map editor later on. Next we want to do, get our height map. Going to put it into another free photo editor software called GIMP, which is quite a powerful photo editing software. It's got a lot of features, I think something like Adobe, the Adobe program, whatever it's called, but I'm using this because I'm cheap. So right, first thing we want to do is we want to go to image, and we want to scale image. Now in Transport Fever 1, the size of the image dictated the size of the map, or the actual size of the image was really important to the size of the map. So, but in Transport Fever 2 it's not as important, but I'm just going to scale it up to 8,000 pixels by 8,000 pixels, just to improve the quality and the scale of the image. So I'm going to scale that up. It's going to give me a warning, it's going to be 134 megabytes, but I'm not going to worry about that too much, and it's just going to increase that size of the image. If you hold control and use your mouse scroll button, you can zoom in and out, and then we have this image here. Next thing we want to go to is image precision. It wants to be a 16-bit integer image. Yes, convert that please. And then we want to go to image and precision and mode, and we want to go to grayscale. It has to be 16-bit, and it has to be grayscale, and it has to be a PNG by the time we've finished in order for it to work. So you go image, mode, grayscale, precision, 16-bit integer, like that. The next thing we need to do is smooth, because we've scaled this image up. If we've zoomed into this image, we can see we've got lines here. I'm not sure if you can see them that clearly, but you do have lines, and that they will become apparent in the map editor. You will just have like these grooves everywhere, and it just won't look good. Stepped. Yeah, all the hills will look stepped, so we don't want that. What we want to do is go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to do, probably on a map like this, between 6 and 10 passes. I would probably do as many as possible, but what we can do is we go to repeat on GIMP. You can go Control F, and it's just a shortcut to repeat that Gaussian blur that we've just done. I'm just going to do this a few times, and then I will come back to you and show you how to import the map into Transport Fever. Okie dokie, so once we've done a good number of Gaussian blur passes over the image, we can then think about exporting it. What we want to do is go to File, Export As, just on the desktop for now. It wants to be a PNG file. Hit that export button. We'll replace the older one that we've been working on, and then you just want to, on this drop down box here, just make sure 16-bit, not RGB, 16-bit grey. That's the one, that one there, grayscale. And then we're going to export that image. Might take a couple of seconds, it certainly will with my computer. It's going to be quite a large image. I imagine it'll be about 30 megabytes or something like that, because it is 8,000 by 8,000 pixels, so it's got a lot of work to do, especially with all those passes of Gaussian blur. Okie dokie, so once that's done, we've got our London and Paris map here, and what we want to do is put it into the directory. So whichever file your Steam apps are in, so mine's on the C, program file, Steam, user data 1897672229 10606780, local, and then height maps. So we go Steam, user data, that one there. I think the 1066,780 is the common file for Transport Fever 2, local, and then height maps there. And then we're just going to get our London Paris height map. Actually, how big is it? 29 meg, so yeah, I wasn't far off. Chuck it in there, and then at the next stage we want to head over to the Transport Fever 2 game itself, so we'll get that loaded up now. And once we're in the game itself, head straight over to Map Editor, and then we want to go to set up our map. So I want to work on a Megalomaniac map. For this you have to have experimental map sizes turned on. If you haven't already done that and you don't know how, I will show you how to do that at the end if you want to use the Megalomaniac experimental map sizes. So it doesn't really matter. Your settings, depends if you're going to be using mods or not, but you can choose your climate. So you've got a dry if you do desert, temperate if it's European or middle, America, or tropical if you're kind of down the east. And then you've got your town names, obviously set those. Not a big issue if you're going to be hand plopping your towns. Environment, so the climate is the sky and the lighting, and the environment is like the ground textures, I think. And then vehicles, you can select your vehicles, but I'll probably just go with all, so you've got access to all of them. Then just click save, click start, and wait for this to load up. And once the map editor is loaded up, we're going to go to the bottom left here, and we're going to go to height map, and we're going to import. So we've got generate, which will generate a random height map for you, or you can go to import, and we're going to be working on the London and Paris one. If we've saved it as a 16-bit grayscale image, then it should work, and you'll get something like this. Currently you can see quite a lot of it is underwater. Now what we have to do is experiment with the ranges. So because this map, I know we do have some quite high mountainous regions, but I just want to drop the overall height a little bit because we're off scale, so I don't want it to look completely ridiculous, but we're going to have to. I'll drop the water. Left hand side is the minimum, very minimum level, so this would be your, almost like your water level, sea level, which we've set to 0, and this range here on the right will be your highest height. So yeah, I'm going to stick to that because this region is relatively flat anyway, and I'm just going to start to decrease the left-hand range into the minus figures to set our water level, or our lowest level. So you can see there we've got the English Channel, the River Thames there, and that river, which I'm not going to try and guess what it is, but just want to, this works on 5 increments of 5, so I'm just kind of increasing it. No, I want to increase it by 5. Let's do 30. Maybe let's go 10, another 10, 40, minus 40. What we're looking for is just the point where it starts flooding out onto areas that it really shouldn't be, so I think that is about it. The water level, I'm going to keep that at 0, and then we're going to go and hit, once we're happy that the water level is where it needs to be, I'm going to hit import. Now if you wanted a quite mountainous map, then obviously first thing you should really be looking for is a mountainous region, but you can also set the maximum height as well, and this will really increase the height of the hills. But we want to keep it relatively flat, because especially this southeast of England and this area of France is reasonably flat. So yeah, once we've hit the import button, it will just start doing passes as it slowly starts to generate, and we can see here we've got some of the river. It's still generating. That's all fine. That's fine. The river's not accurate. It's just a rough representation of River Thames. You might see a few things like that as the image gets generated. Sometimes it just helps to wait just a little bit just for it to finish processing, because there's still a lot for it to do. Yeah, so what I will do is I'll head up to the River Thames actually, and actually looking at it, it's not that bad. I know it's not realistic, but the actual level of the land to the water isn't too bad, so that can all stay like that. That little bit of an area there. What we can now do is just really fine tune the map, just make it look a lot better. You can just kind of play around a little bit with the coast now with the new feature, so you don't have to worry so much about the rivers anymore. It does help to exaggerate them like I did with the black paint, but you can just come in later on with the terrain tool and just really fine tune the map to how you would like it to look. And all in all, it's not actually looking too bad like that. That's just popped in. Might just reconnect that up there like that. But this the scale of this map is going to be off, just because of the distances we're talking about. But you can still have fun with it, still kind of detail it out a little bit, like so. As that's yeah. Just wait for that to generate in there like that, and then you've pretty much got your completed map then. So there's the southeast of England, and then we come over to France. So the next thing we're going to want to do is, if you want to, you can import some towns. This is where it's important to set the town name, so like English or European, French, US town names. So you can set the number here, so you can do as many or as few as you want, and that will just generate a random number of towns, or, which is mostly what I do, is to use the town button to manually plop your town. So we've got let's say a small town like that. A small town is still reasonably big, I think, but you do have to be careful, because setting the capacity limits how quickly your town will grow, so it's something to be aware of. I do like to have smaller towns to begin with, just so I'm not overwhelmed with population, but you can set it to tiny, or you can set it to huge. Let's just chuck that down there like that. So setting the capacity changes the size of the town that you've actually plopped, but it also changes the eventual size that the city can become. So it changes the can I click on that? I think I can. It changes your target population basically, and as we always work off percentages and growth, then those factors will all increase relative to the size of the town. So it's just things to be aware of. But I think about small towns, if you're going to have say like 50 towns maybe, which is easily done, then you probably want to stick with small, just so your computer can cope with all the different towns and whatnot. Same with industries, you can main connections. Maybe you have to do the industries one by one, but that's not what I thought. That's because I was clicking on the wrong thing. So yeah, next to the height map you can click in your industries again. Let's just say 200 for the sake of argument. That was probably a bit too many because it's going to take an age. But yeah, it'll just randomly generate the industries. And the next thing you might want to do is, once you've either created all your towns with the automatic tool or plot them all manually, so I've got 2 there, the next thing you're going to want to do is to connect them up. So do we actually have? I'll just generate 2. Generate, and it doesn't seem to give you the size of the town, it just generates them. And then you'll want them to be connected together, because connected cities grow a lot quicker. And you've got this fancy tool, so you click on the town or the city and you just basically connect the dots. So we're just going to connect those 2 dots. If we had London, maybe we'd go something like that, or maybe if there's a town here, we click that, and then just click them and then generate, and that will generate a road network between all the dots that we've connected up. It will attempt, if it can, to generate a road. If it's too mountainous, it might struggle, but in general it is relatively successful. It does connect all the towns up together, which is important if you want them to grow. And the next thing is, you've got your paint tools, obviously, so you can paint any areas that you want in different textures. I liked on my rivers, because when you generate the map, it tends to give like almost like a beach texture. I prefer to have more of a mud type of texture, especially on like the River Thames and things like that. I don't think it's famous for being a beach or having any beaches on it. It's more of a clay base on the Thames, so I maybe just do a little bit of that, and then if you come in with a paintbrush, reduce the strength and just feather in some different colours, just to make it all merge in nicely, and just really play around with the colours and the paintbrush and things like that. And then obviously you've got your assets, so we can have a single tree or we can have a massive forest. In a couple of seconds we've got a huge wooded area like so. We can turn down the strength obviously as well, so it's not as busy, and you've got rocks to choose from as well. You can plop them down in big things like that. I'm not sure what I think it must be a bit of an in-joke, the rocks on Transport Fever games, because they do seem just to appear everywhere. In Transport Fever 1, when you generated a map, you'd have random rocks absolutely everywhere, but you can just chuck some in if you want to do some detailing. I think we've got like benches which you have to plop one by one, and fences and lights and things like that if you really want to detail your map early on. I like to keep my maps simple, just so they're not particularly taxing on my computer system, which isn't the best. So yeah, it is nice to have loads and loads of detail, but obviously you've got to think about your computer and if it's up to the job. I prefer to have the maximum number of towns and a little bit of detail, as in trees and things like that, just to add a bit of interest. But in general, I try and keep the tree count number down if I can. So yeah, get rid of all of those. So once we're happy with our map and when it's all nicely done, what we're going to want to do is go to export, and we're going to export the height map. This is a London Paris, and we want to export the 16-bit grayscale and write the STL. I think the STL is the height the height information and the town locations as well. So you'll have to export that like so, and there. That might take a couple of seconds. And while it's doing that, we're just having a think. Okay, once we've exported our map, we might want to think about saving it. So I'm going to just quickly save this, London to Paris. That just saves the actual for the map editor itself. So yeah, we've exported that. That's all fine. We can go to quit, and then we're going to go to main menu, and then we're going to go to, once we've done our map, exported it and saved it, we're going to want to play a map. So we're going to play on map. London to Paris, you can see there. Not a very good image, but never mind. But yeah, we can just click. We can go show more options. So obviously we can do all the different things with the mods, and then we just start playing on our map. If you want to share it on Steam, it is really easy now with Transport Fever 2. Just a nice share button there, and that will share the map to Steam. Just got to input some information and a few things, and that map will be shared with the rest of the world if you want them to take a look at your map and appreciate the work that you've done. Might just take a couple of seconds. I'm not going to share it. I'm just trying to is it? That's the one. Publish map, and this will publish it on the Steam Workshop. I don't want to do that because it's not finished yet, but I just thought I'd show you for an example. So there we are. There's hopefully most of the basics for creating a map. It is relatively straightforward once you know how. Once you've found that height map and know how to edit it correctly, the rest is, the actual map editor itself is pretty self-explanatory. So if you've done all that and you want to go on a Megalomaniac map, which you might well do, we need to go to, where do we need to go to? We need to go to C, Program Files, Steam, User Data, whatever that is, 1066-780, and then Local, and then in that file, the one where you've put your height maps there is a settings.lua. You want to open that in Word or in Notepad. Not in Word, in Notepad or Notepad++ if you have that. I've already been opening LUL files, so it knows to open it in Notepad anyway. You'll have something like this, and then you just want to scroll down till you see experimental map sizes. This, if you haven't turned it on already, will say false. You just want to change that to true. Type in true, click save, and you will have enabled experimental map sizes. So I hope I've explained that relatively clearly. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer those as best as I can. But enjoy making the maps and experimenting with the map making facility on Transport Fever 2. So I'm going to leave it there for today and say until next time, bye bye.